The second you were on the ice, I spotted you. And I was like, oh, he doesn't know where to go. And I saw you looking around and checking everyone else out, because it's hard when you're working for a team and you just get called up once or twice. You don't know what you are allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. So I saw you just trying to make sure you're at everyone's shot, which is good.
Yeah.
That's
the main thing. Yeah. Because I'm terrified of because I don't have anyone in my ear telling me like, get out of the way. You're in the shot. All right, welcome everybody to the latest edition of Game Day Claire. I am E, here with my man Lance. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's finally just you and me for a bit. We've been on a roll with a couple of interviews. We got a couple other interviews set up, so it's kind of nice just to be you and I to catch back up and chat a bit and see what's going on.
Yes, I missed our little talks, which is that's makes sense, because today is more about you and I just chopping it up around the podcast, around the evolution of this project, but also what's going on in our careers in the industry, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it'll be good to chit chat around those things and see where everything is at. Yeah. So where do you want to start?
Well, we're 3 months into this project now since we started. And at least a dozen episodes. And, it's something that we do weekly, and I'm really enjoying it. And it is a lot of work. Like, we have like pre-production meetings. We pass ideas around to each other. So that's, the time consuming. But honestly, once we press record, it goes pretty fast and it goes pretty smooth, at least from my point of view. What about you?
No, for me, it's like the longest part of my way. No, it is. It's fun, and it's good to see the interaction as well that comes from it on social media and stuff. And I mentioned this to you off air, but like, if I look weird, I'm getting text messages. I just started playing ice hockey again, and I just learned 5 minutes ago that I've been traded. So after one game in my new league. So yeah, I'm not too sure how I should feel about this. So anyway,
I played hockey with E, so I understand exactly why he's getting traded. Okay. I don't know if he understands why, but I do. And it only took them one game to figure that out. How many penalties did you have your last game, my friend?
Only one.
Oh, okay.
Only one. First shift though. First penalty. I was like, oh, this is not good. But I don't know. I thought I was all right. So I don't know. Like, it's weird. Like, well, I don't know if we want to go through this rabbit hole.
Go into it.
Because apparently I've been traded to the team that we beat that day. So I'm assuming the idea is to make that team better. But I don't think I'm good enough to make another team better. So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit confused. I feel like I'm going to disappoint the other team, and also I feel like I'm going on the weaker team. So there's nothing fun about it.
You're going to have to bring your A game this week, buddy. That's all, and prove everyone wrong,
Yeah, I'll have to go to the gym after this.
Well, speaking of hockey, actually, E and I actually worked together at the PWHL game in Montreal a couple weeks ago. And I think, was that your first time back at the Bell Center?
With a camera in my hands, yes. I went to a couple games this season, which
oh yeah. I put you on the scoreboard.
On the scoreboard a few times, but yeah, it was my first time behind the scenes. It was fun to see, all those little spots where I used to spend a lot of time back in the day, and to see all the improvements, all the new things. And it's funny, just like sometimes I'd be walking, behind in the where the players are warming up and stuff, and then I'd hear it is. And I'd look back, and then this lady I haven't seen in 22 years. And yeah, it was just fun to.
It's because you haven't changed at all. You haven't aged at all, and everyone else has. So they recognize you. You don't recognize them, right? Oh yeah, I see a couple grays.
Yeah.
No, it was neat doing the PWHL game. Like, it was the biggest female game in attendance, right? So that was kind of cool. And the atmosphere was pretty awesome. Like, I was impressed.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's fun to see. It's like a mix of, it's very family oriented. So, kids always get into it. Like, especially if you give them like little free white towels and things to play around with. And there's a lot of, activations and stings that are made to like get kids sort of get into it and dance and scream and have fun. So yeah, there's a lot of atmosphere, a lot of it was almost like, from that perspective, I felt it was much better than an NHL game.
Yeah, it was a very family oriented event, right? It was a 1:00 Saturday game, so it was affordable, and I mean, it's an exciting time for women's hockey. So in Montreal, it was a big deal. Now, I was working broadcast. You were working for the Montreal
League.
Yeah. So what were your tasks during that event?
Well, I'm focused mainly on the Montreal team, but I'm working, technically I was working for the league, so I was covering a few things like before the game, like filming fans getting into the arena and things like that. Then I had to go to one of the suites because there was a photo op with some PWHL players and some like Canadian tennis players, and they were doing like some sort of jersey swap. I think actually the girls, they're PWHL, but they're Team Canada players, and they were doing some sort of jersey swap with tennis players. And after that, what else? Like covered a warm up, and the cool thing as well was that I get to go on the ice. Like in the PWHL, it's very camera friendly, so you can get on the ice not during the game, obviously, but before and after. So I was on the ice during the whole pre-game like presentation and the anthems and all that stuff. So that was special. Like I've been on the Bell Center ice before, obviously, but not during an event where there's 20,000 people in the stand. So all I kept thinking about is like, don't fall, don't fall, because everyone else who does it regularly had all these little like rubber things that you put on your shoes with spikes in them, but I didn't. So yeah, let's take small steps, not to do anything too crazy. So yeah, I made it through. But yeah, during the game, it's covering the game. If there's a goal, next intermission, I'm sending that goal directly to the social media person, and afterwards covering the press conference, all these things, like basically doing what you would normally do when you're working for a team. And it's just because it was such a bigger event that they needed like a few extra people to make sure they be able to cover everything. And there was a few interviews as well that I had to do. Like there was I think the president of the league, I think her role was like, she was there. We did an interview with her. There was someone else, like an artist that did like a painting during the game. She was pretty cool. She was painting with a hockey puck. And it was,
oh, that's neat.
Yeah, and it looked pretty good. So we interviewed her. So yeah, a few things like that.
So my job was pretty simple. I was just filming for broadcast. So my director's telling me what he wants me to shoot, right? And I'm behind the net. But it is funny that you said you were on the ice, because the second you were on the ice, I spotted you. And I was like, oh, he doesn't know where to go. And I saw you looking around and checking everyone else out, because it's hard when you're working for a team and you just get called up once or twice. You don't know what you are allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. So I saw you just trying to make sure you were at everyone's shot, which is good.
Yeah. That's the main thing. Yeah. Because I'm terrified of because I don't have anyone in my ear telling me like, get out of the way, you're in the shot or something. So I have no idea if I'm blocking some sort of broadcast camera that's supposed to get the players or the anthem singer or whatever. So yeah, I was very wary of where I should go, where I should be. And I think I did all right, but I did and I didn't, because I think technically I was meant to be covering more Montreal, but then I ended up being on the Toronto side, thinking I'm shooting the girls from the front, but then the flags are on the other side. So when the anthem started, everybody's facing the flags and I've got everybody's backs. So
and you can't cross
decided to shoot so I decided to just shoot the bench, because I wasn't gonna walk in front of the anthem singer during the anthems.
No, that's a no.
But then during the starting lineup announcement, I got in front of the Montreal team and I got a great shot of the captain while she was getting a big like stand-up ovation, and she was also getting like teary and stuff, and I got a good shot of that. So
yeah, that was actually a cool moment. Yeah, there was Mary Philip Poulain. They gave her a big standing ovation. It was her first game right at the Bell Center. Well, not the Bell Center, but that team's first game at the Bell Center.
Yeah,
it was a big deal. And you were also on the ice too for a couple of the intermission contests.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So I have some behind the scenes footage that I'll share when we air these clips of E.
Nice. It
was me on my stalker cam, laughing, filming E, trying to get in and on the ice just to stay out of everyone's way. So I got those shots. So now what were you filming? 4K 120 for everything?
Yeah, pretty much. Except for the interviews, of course. But everything else, yeah, 4K 120, especially Bell Center and the other game that I filmed at the other arena in Laval. I find like 4K 120, I don't even need to, like, I can stay at a pretty low. Well, no, that's not true. Because I was going to say when I film football, I usually push to the second, so the native ISO of my camera, which is 12,800, and then I use an ND to sort of tone it down. But at a hockey, I was actually filming in S Cinetone instead of S-Log 3, and the second ISO is 2,000. So I think I was mainly on that one. And yeah, so being around that in 4K 120, I could have a shutter speed around 320, 400, and an aperture around 4. And yeah, that was pretty much my setup. I like 4 because it's easy to keep everyone in focus.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about
around
tracking the wrong people, right? Because sometimes the 2.8, and if you're on automatic focus, it'll grab the wrong person, and then you're fighting it to get back.
Yeah, or it's constantly jumping, and it's just annoying. Same thing with the crowd. Like if you're trying to film someone in the crowd, but then it just focuses on the person just next to them or in front of them, and then you're trying to touch to change it, and then your camera's shaking, and it's a mess. So. 2.8 is great, but it is, if you're going to film automatic, it is a bit more risky. So sometimes F4 is just more smoother. And it's still, because there's a lot of depth in the professional arena where there's tons of space. So F4, you're still getting a lot of blurry backgrounds. It's not like everything's in focus.
And the only thing too about the Bell Center is, so when you're on the ice, and when you're behind the scenes, it's just your white balances, right? Because obviously the color temperatures change. I mean, usually it's like what 56K is basically what the arena is, where the ice is, and then when you go
lower than that,
it was lower.
Well, for me anyway. Maybe I had it wrong, but I think it was in the like 46. I want to say
a 40, maybe yeah,
because it's fluorescent lights.
Yeah, it is fluorescent. Yeah. And then when you go in the stands, you gotta boost your ISO a bit, or your aperture, because it's a lot darker. It's a lot darker.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's what's annoying about it. Like it was making that switch like on the fly. Then you have to adjust the ISO. I try to, like, I would have liked to just, I should have organized it so that I can switch maybe to 60. Like just go to like my memory recall. Just go to my settings for 4K 60, and then. Yeah, just have like a button, because otherwise I was always sort of switching everything and then switching back. I think it's because all my memory recalls are in S-Log 3, so if I did that, then it would have changed my picture profile. That's why I wasn't doing it. Yeah.
Actually, I'm thinking though, but yeah, my broadcast camera is 56, but maybe it's different between your Sony and my broadcast camera, because I have a CCU guy who controls everything. I'm pretty sure mine's 56.
You're a superstar.
That's it. I just plug in and shoot.
You have assistants.
Hey, it's kind of nice when you don't have to worry about white balance or anything. All I got to do is worry about framing and keeping focus. That's it.
But that's a good thing, actually, because a lot of people don't realize that. Because I had that conversation with a few people online where, like, because they saw broadcast, like, you gotta, they talk about how people are lazy because they use autofocus for some reason. And they say in broadcast, no one uses autofocus, which is true. But you do have help, though. So, like, can you describe roughly, like, what's the process with the CCU and everything? Like, and what's your job specifically?
My CCU guy, Jean, we before the game, I go down, I test my camera. He sets my whites, my blacks, and make sure that he takes care of all my colors. And we just make sure that it's an image, clean image. And that most important thing, that my tally light works. Because that little red light tells you when you're on or off. And you know what? We switched systems last year, and I'd say for the first half of the year, I didn't have a tally light. And it was tough because you don't know when you're on. They tell you, but when you see that red light, you really, really know, like, okay, now it's time. Like, I got to focus and I'm on. And sometimes they'll say, like, I'm always camera 1. So they'll say camera 1, but you don't realize you're on. And also they're like, hey, camera 1. Like, oh, sorry. And then you got to real pull back and make sure you're steady. But for focus, I mean, you're constantly focusing during the game, but it's a little easier with a broadcast camera because the lenses are better. So you basically zoom in at the far end, you set your focus, you'll pull back out, and then everything else is in focus. Only when they get really, really back up to close to you again is when you have to reset your focus again. So that's the only real difference. I mean,
And what about exposure?
he handles all that. My CCU handles all the exposures too. Everything's set. But the only thing is, like, if I go in the crowd real fast, they can't use me until he sets it. Now, there is a workaround where I do it sometimes, is we have an automatic and a manual switch right on my handle. So I'll flip it, and I can open up my iris. So I have done that in the past when they're stuck, or if they're not getting to me fast enough, I've done it. And, I mean, you know when you're overexposed, and plus I have zebras and stuff inside my viewfinder already, so I know that I'm bang on. But it's very, very rare that I actually have to do that.
And do you know with zebras, like, what do you put the limit at for hockey specifically? Because the ice would always be sort of
I think they're like a 75.
And you're at 75. You're saying your thinking is, as long as the players are not overexposed, it's fine. But you're not worried about the ice.
Yeah, exactly. You're not really so worried about the ice because it'll be fine. It's more especially where I am in the end zone. The players are coming close to me, so I'm focused more on the players. You don't really see the ice as much. Where if you're wide and the ice is your main shot, then yeah, it's different. But like, thank God I have Jean, because he controls all that, and I don't have to worry. I just focus on the play, because it's so fast to play too, right? Especially when you got pucks coming at you. Like, I always laugh because every game there's a puck that gets shot directly at my lens, and now I don't even move because I'm so used to it. But everybody in my whole section ducks down, and they're all afraid they're going to get the puck, and I just laugh. And then there's always this this wet circle right where my lens was, where the puck was.
And does the CCU guy, does he have, like, how many cameras is he handling at the same time? Because he's not just working with you.
He's handling 8, probably 7 or 8.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Because we're 6 guys on our crew. Yeah, 8. 6 guys on our crew, and then we have 2 robotic cameras. So yeah, he's got. That's why sometimes he can't always. If I jump in the crowd, like, I don't have to always go in the crowd, because I'm filming the ice, and there's always action happening to me, fights in front of me, stuff like that. So when I do go in the crowd, if he can't get to me in time, then I have that cheat where I could just put it in manual and open up the iris. But Jean's so good that I don't really have to do that too often. Got to be good to my CCU guy. I got to keep staying as good.
It's like the O-line to a quarterback.
That's it. He makes me look good.
Buying a Christmas gift.
So what about you? What did you think of your hockey experience, considering it's been a while?
Yeah, it has. Well, no, it was fun. I liked filming through the glass is always interesting, because there's certain, depending where you are, like,
because you moved around quite a bit, no?
Yeah, I did, but I think I spent the most time filming the game. I spent the most time, like, there was, like, specific spots in between sections. Like, I think, let's say it was like between 113 and 114, there's, like, stairs going down, and I'm allowed to be at the bottom of those stairs, basically sitting down there and filming next to the glass. So from that angle, it's like whatever is happening in that zone, because I'm pretty much where the blue line is, I think. So in that zone, I can cover everything, but in the corner is a bit hard, but like the corner that's close to me. But then as soon as it goes to the other end, like, I can't. There's people in the way, like, and the glass. I've got this angle on the glass where it just magnifies and distorts everything. It just looks weird. So there's just no point past the red line to try to film anything, because it's not going to look great. So yeah, that's the challenge with hockey. That's a bit, you got to get used to, but there's things you just cannot do depending on where you are, where you're positioned. I learned I haven't used it myself, but there's like these,
You have the little windows.
Yeah, little holes for cameras, for lenses, and I heard, like, the rules. Like, apparently you're supposed to shut it when the players are, like, about 10 feet away or something, or, like, less than 3 meters away. Or I'm not sure what the actual limit is, but you're supposed to close it, and if you don't, then you can lose your credentials. And someone was telling me a story about a photographer that was just didn't really care. I was just taking photos, even though the players were close, and lost his credentials.
Really?
So
I never heard that.
Yeah.
So that was a mark Bergevin rule, who was our old GM. So I don't know if you remember the story, but Jeff Petrie, we're playing the playoffs, and his pinky finger got stuck in one of those, and he basically tore a ligament in his pinky finger. But before that incident, there was no little sliding glass doors. People were shooting whenever they wanted. There was no rules. It was like, I mean, those bays are for photographers, not for videographers like us. Like, it's very, very rare for a videographer to get one. Maybe you'll get it if the photographer's gone to get some other photos or something, but those are never available. But yeah, they were wide open for a long, long time. The only thing that I did see a couple times happening was pucks going through it. Now, I don't know if you realize this, but at practice, players play games where they try to shoot pucks through those holes.
Okay.
Yeah. So they'll do that a lot when they're rimming. A lot of the goalies try to put it through. So, every now and then the photographers would get hit, but never was there an injury, at least at the Bell Center. I'm sure there's been other injuries. But Jeff Petrie got hurt one time, and then from that moment on, they wanted to ban them. Like, they were blocked out for a while and no one was using them. It was a big, big deal because we were making a far playoff run. And then they came up with these little sliders that go in and out. And yeah, it's not hard. It's not easy. You're taking photos. The guys are coming. You got to close the window, keep your camera. Like, it's not an easy task for a photographer to do this.
That's true. Well, it is. I've never done it.
It's like a league-wide thing though now. Now it's like all the teams are doing this now because of player injury.
Yeah, because the guy that told me that story, I think he said like it was a Chicago game or something.
Where the guy lost the credentials?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's the team that it's not like the league was was managing this. Like, it was someone from the Blackhawks that spotted him. And,
okay. Because your credentials just get barred from that arena, basically, right? You can
exactly
in other venues.
Yeah.
Now, we had spoken on our on our previous show how filming different sports is a little harder and different and all that. So even for me, I found filming the women's hockey a lot different than the men's.
In what way?
In the speed for sure, and then I was a little surprised with skill. Like, there's some very, very skilled women out there. Don't get me wrong, but I found there was a drop off between like the first line and fourth line, and I know there is in the NHL too, but I guess because it's a new league, like I found it was a big, big drop off. So I was a little surprised on that. And I found that like those girls in the fourth line, when they were out there, they kind of got stuck out there for a bit because they had a hard time changing, or the play was stuck in the zone a little bit more. And I didn't find it as crisp, but they play differently. They don't have to, I don't expect them to play like the NHL and all that, but I did find it a little more challenging to film it because it wasn't as crispy as like the NHL. Like in the NHL, when a guy, is behind the net, he passes to his blue line, it's a dead on play. No one's really intercepting it. These guys are pretty good. And with the women, it was more like a bit like kind of like amateur a bit, that you didn't know what was going to happen on the plays, or pucks that you thought would be out of the zone, they stayed in a lot longer, which then makes it a little bit more difficult for us who are filming this because, we cheat. We try and anticipate the play. We try and, you're trying to get that nice shot. You're like, oh, okay, the puck's going here, and then the puck doesn't go there. So then you got to react, and you're like, oh, your shot wasn't as good as you thought. And so I felt like I was afraid to miss stuff, first of all, because it was such a historic game. So I found it a little harder because I was putting a little bit more pressure on myself too, to make sure I got all those shots or got the goals. And it was pretty exciting. Hey, it was an overtime game, and the overtime goal was scored on my zone. It's just,
get it?
Yeah, I got it, but it wasn't for our team. So you know what I mean? No one's really inside. You're not seeing it. You'll see my shot on broadcast on TV, but inside the bowl, you're not seeing my shot because we don't show. When the other team scores, you show one replay of it. That's it. That's all. You can have the nicest shot in the world. You're seeing a nice far angle of that shot, and that's it. But I did find it different. Did you find anything like that filming the game now that because you've done more than one?
Yeah, well, to me, like I said at the beginning of the show, I play beer league hockey, so to me, they're very organized and very predictable and very it's way better than what I'm used to. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I get that more in basketball, like when I was still in Australia, like going from professional to then filming like youth, sort of 21 to 23-year-olds, like you could see such a difference in that way, and also a lot more bricks. So I was that the more professional it is, in a way, the easier it is to film because they become very predictable. And it sounds weird to say that the best players in the world are predictable, but in a sense they are, because they don't miss. So that's what makes it predictable. And you know where the action is going, and when it's going there, it's going to get there most of the time. Where in youth hockey or football or whatever, it's there's a lot of football is also one that's professional. You can see what's going to happen. If you're filming 13-year-olds playing football, first of all, there's a hell of a lot more runs, and they're just going in all sorts of directions and stuff. And so yeah, in that sense, yeah, the more professional the sport is, the easier it is to film, and it makes you look better as well, and it makes your footage look better as well, because when the players are not as skilled, not as fast, and everything moves slower, and it makes the video looks less dynamic. So when the action just speaks for itself, and it's fast, and it's crisp, and it's on, that it makes you look better and makes your videos better.
The other thing I will say about the PWHL is, for a first year of the league, I think they're doing an amazing job, and it's only going to get better and better. And it's really cool that women have this option now, so it's awesome. And we're going to see more and more women highlights out there, and the game's just going to get cleaner and cleaner and faster, because it's going to evolve. Like year one, I think it's great year one, but year two is going to be even better.
I want to see a fight though, because it's true. There's body checks, there's violence a bit, but like,
there's a lot of scrums, a lot of face rubs. They're like, they push the boundaries where NHL guys will get penalties for that stuff. Where the PWHL girls, they're pretty feisty, actually.
I want to see two girls just go, let's go, drop, take the helmet off, let's get it on. I would make, it would be in all the news channels for sure.
Could you imagine the hype if there was a goalie fight where two goalies skated down and fought at center ice? That would, that'd be must-see TV for sure.
Yes.
Maybe you'll get to film that. Maybe. You put your crampons on so you can go on the ice and get up nice and close, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, actually, at that game, I actually got to go down and see you. Because we only got to chit-chat for, 10, 15 minutes, because you were busy, I was busy, you came, you tested my camera. And you gave me a little piece of gear. You gave me a little piece of gear that I actually used on my last road trip. You want to talk about that little piece of gear? Because it actually saved my ass, actually. It was very, very great.
Cool. Well, yeah, because that's who I am. I live to give.
That's it. He's a giver, guys. He's a giver.
Yeah.
So I'll give you his email address. He'll send you guys gifts, so don't worry. Whatever you want, he'll get you, okay?
Exactly. You get a camera. You get a camera.
That's it.
The camera. But, because I reached out to Ulenzi. That's a brand that does they do a bunch of different accessories, and the main one for me anyway, is their external camera cooling fans, which the first time I tried it was yours, actually, the first version that had suction cups that weren't really working, so the external fan was always falling off. But they improved it, changed the way it attaches itself to the camera. So I reached out to them, asked them if I could try it out for a video, and they agreed. And they sent me one so I can make a video about it. I got it, and then 2 days later, I got a second one for some reason. I think there was a mix-up in the shipping department. So yeah, I gave you the second one. I thought it would be an improvement from the one you had. And I don't know about you, but sounds like it went great. But yeah, I tried it out as well at a basketball game, and it was very helpful. I didn't have any overheating, not even a warning, nothing. And I was only using it at because there's two speeds, so obviously one speed is faster than the other, but means that the battery doesn't last as long. I think if you go speed 1, it's like 85 minutes, and speed 2 is like 60 minutes. So I kept speed 1 the whole time, and yeah, no issues, no nothing. What about you? What situation did you use it in?
Well, so first of all, what an upgrade just that little spring makes than the suction cups. Because when we used it at basketball with the suction cups, yeah, it kept falling, and then I had this hack where you put this elastic on your camera. It looks a little like, doesn't look that great, right? But the little springs work great. So I was in Palm Springs last week filming some corporate events, and it was like 30 degrees Celsius, so like 90 degrees Fahrenheit. It was hot. It was hot. And I used it more as precaution because I did see maybe about 2 hours into filming, I did see that little yellow icon that comes out that shows you that you might be overheating. But yeah, I clicked that Ulanzi on and it was gone instantly. And I kept running it every now and then. Now I was lucky because I was filming events and stuff like that. I wasn't doing interviews, so I didn't have to worry about audio or maybe the fan making any noise. But I'll be honest, that fan doesn't even really make noise when you're on one. Like, you don't really hear it. So it's good. But just the fact that I didn't have to worry about it falling off my camera, yeah, it was a game changer. And I sent you the picture too, right? I texted E a picture of my camera set up with it. I said, thanks, buddy. Because on the other one, when it kept falling off, it was hard. Like, I always had to, like, I almost lost it one time, the suction cup one, because it fell off. And this one I didn't have to worry because I am shooting most of my stuff with an A7 IV. Now the A7 IV is known to overheat. I have been very, very lucky. I had my camera overheat once, and it overheated because I was in a hot room. Like, I was overheating. So I was overheating, and I was filming like 4K 60, and I'm filming on 2 cards at the same time. So I was really, really pushing my camera. So I understood, like, okay, this is why it's overheating, you know? And this is something you do a lot in your YouTube videos. Like, if I was filming 30 frames a second or 24 frames a second on one SD card, it's not going to be as hot. But when you're doing an event for somebody, you want to make sure, like, I'm always paranoid of a card malfunctioning or something like that. So I'm recording on both cards at the same time. So that's why it takes up a little more juice. So especially in hot temperatures, so that Ulanzi works great. And honestly, they're like $30. It's worth it to have in your kit, I think. Anyway, even if you don't use it,
yeah,
just for peace of mind.
Yeah, I was skeptical, to be honest, at first, but no, I think it's worth it. I think it definitely helps, makes a difference. And it's just like you said, if anything, just for that peace of mind that you don't have to worry about it. And because I had that conversation with someone else, like at basketball, like, it's always at the end of the game that it becomes a problem. It's never at the big game. But guess what? That's the exact moment where you need to be, you need your camera. It's the fourth quarter, the basket counts. Like, that's when everything's really happening, and also the crowd's more into it. So that's when you're getting your best shots. So that's the worst time in the world for your camera to start overheating. And even if the fan dies before then, because it kept the camera cool this entire time, then the camera will probably be able to just go through the fourth quarter by itself. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's definitely worth it for the price. And it's super small, so it fits in your pocket. It's USB-C powered. It's very, in a sense that, like, you can charge it USB-C, or you can plug it. You can connect it to your V-mount if you want and keep it constantly powered. Like, it's up to you, but yeah, it's very easy to use and very convenient.
But especially, look, like, summer sports are coming up, right? So, like, I mean, Montreal, it doesn't get crazy hot. It gets like 85 degrees, 85 Fahrenheit, 25 Celsius. But, like, if you're in Florida, or I don't know, somewhere in the south, yeah,
Texas,
you could definitely use that, especially if you're filming football in the evening and it's hot, or late afternoon. It's definitely good to have in your camera bag, I think, especially for the low price you're gonna pay for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, especially if you're paying way more for a camera, at least you want to be able to use it properly.
Exactly. You have any other new gear you've been testing out, E? Because you've been pretty busy lately.
Yeah, well, I tested a couple cameras like the A7C Mark II and the A6700, which are not necessarily like brand new cameras, but recent. And now I'm looking at I wanted to potentially test. I haven't spoken to the Sony rep about this, so I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But I wanted to try one. Is it the R5? That's like 8K, and I was curious to try that and see what 8K looks like, and compare it and see how long you can actually film. I think 8K is only in 24 or 30 frames though, but yeah, I was curious. I've never filmed in 8K before, so I thought it could be a cool thing to try and see if it looks that much better, especially in the sports sort of context. And so yeah, that would kind of be my next thing camera wise, unless a new Sony camera comes out in the next few weeks, and then I get access to it. I probably won't get access to it before it comes out, but if I do get it, it'll be probably a few weeks after. But yeah, otherwise, equipment-wise, I don't think I've changed much except for the fan. What about you? Yeah. Did you buy anything? Well, we bought these things when we started the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So listen, I'll rewind a bit. So I filmed an 8K before on a Red camera.
Okay.
And it was honestly beautiful footage, great footage. Not the funnest to edit. A lot of proxies.
But what computer did you have at the time?
It was like...
Did you have an M1 or something or no?
It was just before the M1, so I think it was the i7. But this had like 64 gigs of RAM. Like the computer was a powerhouse. But I was editing a documentary, so it was like an hour and a half film, So what I did is I had to break it up into chapters, and I basically edited each chapter. Each chapter was almost its own project, kind of, just to save on the weight, and you had proxies. But for interviews, wow, it was like having three cameras, because you could really go in, like, film it wide and go nice and tight. Like having the 8K gave you a lot of play. That's the only time I filmed an 8K. Now, gear-wise, I haven't upgraded. I did order the new Peter McKinnon VND polarized filter that just came out this week. Because I did need a new ND filter, because I was using a Freewell, and I like it. Don't get me wrong, my Freewell is great. I had no vignetting. I had no issues with it. But when I was in Palm Springs, I was shooting a lot outside, and I was constantly have to change the settings on it. Where on the Peter McKinnon one, it's like just a 1-stop, 2-stop. Like you have your 5 stops. That's it. That's all. And it clicks, and you know where you are. Where in the Freewell, I found like I was forever searching. Like I didn't know where I was. So I was constantly looking.
It's like a smooth transition. There's no clicks.
Exactly. So that's why I ordered it. And then new polarized one is just going to help to shoot through glass also. So I figured, and also, honestly, if you're in an arena and you're at the higher ISO, I can use that. And then I can get through guys' visors. Like, you look like a visor guy to me. So, yeah. Yeah. No. But you can get through visors and stuff like that too a little better. So I figured, why not pull the trigger and order that one? And I also ordered the short stash, the everyday filter, which is like a polarized and a mist, because this is raw. I know you have a mist filter for sure, because he's always trying to make his complexion a little bit better.
My great skin, is that right?
Yeah. So I ordered those just to kind of enhance the images a bit, and the more you use a tool, you want to make sure you have the best tool available. And I found the Freewell did the job, but for what I wanted the consistency for, that's why I pulled the trigger on the Peter McKinnon one. But it's pricey, man. For a filter, like, it ain't cheap. Now, the only other piece of equipment, I'm looking to get another camera, but I'm waiting for the A7 IV. I say A7S IV. Because I had an A7S III. I love that camera. There's always these rumors. The A7S IV is coming. It's coming. Now, supposedly, Sony's pulling the trigger on this year.
And have they teased like what the new features would be, or?
They're saying 6K. But my A7 IV that I'm on right now is a 6K downsize to 4K. So they're saying it's going to be 6K. Now, I don't know. Is there going to be a crop? Is there going to be anything? But honestly, like you have the FX3. I had the A7S3. That camera is already amazing. So anything else that they add extra to it is just going to make it that much better. I'm hoping they will have that new AI sensor for sure with like more stabilization, like they have in the R series and that. R5 it is. So, I mean, that's definitely going to be a bonus, but I'm like, why buy an FX3 now when I know Sony's about to release all these new cameras? Because, you know, they slowly leaks online. It's coming. So I'm just kind of like in a waiting game because I know if I go buy an FX3 today, 2 weeks from now, they come out with a new camera, I'm going to be pissed. You know? So I'm like, forget it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm always a bit on the fence about this because I'm like, there's always got to be new cameras. So there's no perfect time to buy a camera and say, oh, there's not going to be a better camera coming out after this one. So it's like, if a camera fits your needs and your price, then, you know, it is what it is. But at the same time, if you think that there's one that's coming out very, very soon, might as well wait and see what the fuss is about. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people who hold off on things because they're scared to pull the trigger on something because they're terrified to get it wrong, to buy a camera and then realize that there was a better one that came out after. But I feel like those people use it more as an excuse, though. It's more of a like, you know, people do the same thing with cars and with like every time there's like a big expense, like we're so scared because it's, you know, it's a lot of money and it's usually like you saved up for a while, so you don't want to get it wrong. And it's those type of topics, whether it's computers, cameras, there's always going to be someone telling you got the wrong one. Like, you know, you're on Mac. Yeah, you're wasting money. And then, and then cameras, Sony, why did you buy this? And there's always going to be someone making you feel bad about your purchase. And when you spend $50, you're like, oh, shut up. Who cares? But when you spend like thousands of dollars, you're like, oh, did I get it wrong? You start freaking out about it.
Well, that's it. It's like A7S3. It's came out 4 years ago. So, and then they came with the FX3, which is like a better version of it. I mean, it's pretty much the same. Or even the ZV-E1 is basically based off that A7S3, right? So it's like they got to come out with the A7S4. They have to. So that's why I'm waiting. Because even honestly, I was like, oh, should I just get? I have this theory like maybe should I have a full frame and an APS-C. I feel like having both is beneficial. But since I already have the A7 IV, if I'm filming in 4K 60, it's going to crop anyway. So I don't need another, like I can use that as my crop and get a new full frame. So that's why I'm kind of holding off. But like I do have a deadline date. Like I have this big shoot coming up that I want to get the camera for at the end of the summer. That's already planned. So I'm like, okay, I'll get it then. If the A7 IV isn't out by then I'm going to have to, you know, come up with a plan B, which might be an FX3. Or I'll just borrow your FX3 and we can't do this podcast. That's all.
So I'm shooting the podcast on the FX30, actually.
Oh, there you go. Oh, you just keep your FX3 just to show in case I ask you for a camera shot and you pull it out as an extra?
Exactly. But no, I think doing like streaming is a bit more complicated with the FX3. I don't think it's not possible, but I think you have to play around a bit more in the menu which I've never tried, so maybe it's not that hard. But I know that the FX3, I just plug it in and it's good to go.
That is one thing, though, with the Sonys, it's very, very easy to use for a webcam. And that, or like Shafiq, when he was on the show, and that he had a couple issues with his Fuji at first to get it going. And it was doing it at 50 frames a second for some reason. I don't know if maybe just because it was the first time he tried it or not. But like, with the Sonys, it's pretty pretty
Yeah, well, especially since a certain day. I think the FX3 was before then, but since then, like it's pretty much it's just plug and play, and there's nothing to really adjust other than deciding if you want to do it in 4K or in 30 frames or 15 frames or whatever. But other than that, it's just good to go. Where the FX3, I think you need to set up like a remote control and all that sort of stuff, and gets a bit messier. I think you have to maybe not Bluetooth, but yeah, there's some sort of remote thing that you got to adjust.
Now, when you've been trying these other Sony cameras, How do they stack up to your FX3? Like your FX3 is still the best.
Yeah.
Video wise, out of all them, like they don't match.
Yeah. Well, I don't take photos, so yeah. So from a video perspective, like the FX3 is always the best from the models that but to be fair, also every model that I've tested was cheaper than the FX3, so it makes sense. It's not like it's it's not like the FX3 is like a sneaky sleeper. Oh, look at this great camera, no one knew it was going to be.
Yeah, everyone knows it's funny. Or what about the ZV-10 ZV-E1? How does that match up? Because that's a full frame, and it's basically
I've never tried it, to be honest.
Oh, no?
But no, I've tried the little one, the ZV-10, but not the ZV-1. But I think, well, now that you can attach external cooling fans, that might be a game changer, because the ZV-1 was definitely known to overheat like very quickly. Like,
because it shoots 4K 120 with no crop, right?
Yeah, something like that. Because I think even in 4K 60 it was struggling. But it was really meant for vloggers who are just filming in 24 and 30 and just filming little clips here and there and not too long. And so I think it struggles for filming long periods of time at full quality, obviously. Like if you go to 1080p or something like that, then you're probably, probably avoiding all these issues. But yeah, I think it's kind of my... because the FX3, you can do anything, and it's never going to be really an issue. Like there is a crop in 4K 120. It's 1.4, I think.
Yeah, it's minimal. You don't even notice it.
Yeah, well, you notice it, but it's not. Like you don't feel like the quality is impacted. It's not. The only time I notice it more is like if I'm filming basketball and I'm on the baseline and I want to catch players coming at the basket. Yeah, it is a bit. It's hard, because I could obviously just use a wider lens, but like when you're just moving around the court, you don't want to be changing lenses too much. So if I'm using my 35 to 150, I like to just stick to that the entire game. So when I'm on the baseline, it just feels a bit too tight at 4K 120, where if I tone it down to 4K 60, all of a sudden it's much wider and I can get a nice shot of a player like dunking the basketball, where in 4K 120 I'll probably get him from the chest up. So yeah, so it's more there's only that can be a little bit annoying, but anything else, I mean, like in an ideal world, like my ideal camera would be the FX3 with internal NDs, but and I think having to use external ND filters is a small price to pay to get everything else that I do get with this camera, because first of all, I don't always need ND filters, and when I do, it's not that big of a deal.
But the reason why we're hung up on ND filters is when we were younger, all our video cameras had built-in ND filters.
Yeah.
So we took that for granted. And then we even had boosts too. We could boost up the image too.
Yeah.
Right? Like you don't have those options anymore. So that's why we're like, oh, we need that ND filter.
Yeah. You want those cameras for camcorders, though.
Yeah. But that's where we came from, right? Like,
understand. Like, yeah.
Mirrorless wasn't around.
Yeah, DSLRs, like before, they were like photo only, and then they started like, oh yeah, let's just add a bit of, might as well let people film a little bit with them, and went from there and just sort of went crazy. But yeah, the cameras that we used to use were camcorders. They were video only. They were built for video, and that's what it was. And yeah, you had NDs, you had all these things internally. That was because I remember buying my first DSLR. I didn't realize there wasn't going to be a zoom rocker on the camera. I was like, how am I meant to zoom? Like, what's going on here? And it wasn't even a DSLR. It was a cinema camera. Like, it was still like it was meant for video, but there was no zoom rocker. I was like, fuck, I didn't know that. So I had to learn I had to learn what aperture was and how to get those blurry backgrounds and things like that, which I never had to worry about before. So, yeah,
it was a game changer.
Yeah, changed very quickly. It evolves constantly. And I think, like, to be honest, and I'm sure I've told you this before, but like I think that cameramen are going to be obsolete in a few decades. Like, it's just going to be a pole with like the equivalent of a Insta360 type camera that's going to be covering everything, and you're just going to go in post and just do whatever you want.
Actually, it's funny you talk about Insta360 because now they have this 8K camera, and I'm dying to get my hands on it. But what's the post? Like, I never dabbled with it. What's the post-production like in that? Like, when you could pick any angle you want, it's got to be hard on your system. Like, I know when they first came out with it, online guys were saying the guys that were testing it for them had issues because the codecs weren't updated yet on the Macs to even handle the camera. But what, like, I wonder what it's like with an 8K, you know, you're zooming in on everything or what? Like, it must be a heavy file.
Yeah, and it's also painstaking work to always trying to find the right angle for everything, and then you don't really see everything as well in the default shot, so you got to remember, oh yeah, that happened, let me check the other angle. Oh yeah, that's right, because it happened behind me. So so you can't see it in the footage, so you have to sort of turn the camera around to find it. So I'm assuming editing a whole video that's been filmed like that, unless you're filming, because I think so far what we're seeing, like with that type of content, it's filmed purposely. Like, you're filming shots and you know exactly what you're going to do with them and things like that. So when you go into the edit, you know exactly what you need and where to get it. So, but if you were just to put 2 or 3, 4 sticks around a football game and just then go back to that game and try to edit from there, geez, I hope someone's taking some type of notes or something to remember which camera has the best angle for what. Because, well, not this. Technically, every camera has a good angle, but yeah, it would just be a lot of work to go through all that and find the right perspective and move everything in post. And then I think you still have to export content, don't you? Like, you have to go through the 3 Insta app to sort of basically move the camera, and then once you're happy with that, you need to export that into editing software.
You have to pre-edit it before you edit it.
Yeah. So it is still kind of a painful, sort of painstaking work.
You tried that robot camera, no? That's supposed to like track soccer and football and all that.
Oh yeah, those AI cameras, yeah.
And
it's hit and miss.
Hit or miss.
It's good for, like, if you're a soccer club or a basketball, whatever, and you want to be able to film all your practices, film all your games, and you obviously don't have budgets to hire videographers for every single event, then it is a good sort of alternative, because it takes 5 minutes to set up, and then it goes directly to the cloud, but then you have to pay a subscription though, which is not cheap. And there'll be, when it's games, like, there'll be automatic little chapters to every game and to every goal, and if it's like for soccer, for example, there'll be like chapters for like corner kicks and penalties and all these different things. It's all automatic. So if you're like a coach who's doing everything himself, it saves you tons of time, especially if you're like a volunteer or something like that. Like, you don't want to spend your whole Sunday going through tape, and like, the machine does it all for you. So in those situations, it's really helpful. But if you're a videographer relying on something like that,
no, you're not going to use those shots.
No, it's a safe shot, I guess, that you could use but the quality is not that great. The shot is very average. There's no zooming in or anything. Well, there is, but like to a certain extent, like, it's always a super wide shot and it's moving. And sometimes it can sort of lose track. For example, if a player goes on the breakaway, the camera is probably going to stick on the portion of the field where everyone is, so that it's not going to realize that the guy breaking away from the group is actually the one with the ball. So there's mistakes like that the camera can make. So it's not perfect, but so it's good for teams, but it's not good for videographers.
I've only seen it once in the hockey arenas. And it looked like a pretty big setup. Well, not like it was a big setup, but like the tripod was pretty serious that they had it on. And then it raises up and you have this piece that sits on top. It was like, I don't know, it looks like a triangle almost that sits on top. And the guy did it and he just sat there behind it. But like, I'd rather myself have my camera and follow the play, and I know I got everything if I want that far safe shot, you know? Because I wouldn't trust the robot or the AI or that system, because we have a system in some of the arenas here. Well, they have them all over North America called Live Barn, And Live Bar is pretty good. It's a subscription, and basically there's cameras that are set up in the arenas. They have them for baseball and other sports too. And basically it just tracks the main group. So like you said, when you said like a breakaway, like it's very hard for it to catch up to the breakaway because everyone else is over here and it doesn't realize like, oh shoot, there's a play over here, you know? So if your kid gets a breakaway goal, you're most likely missing that on Live Bar. But it's interesting of all the different gear and stuff that you can use to kind of capture sports, you know, from Insta360 or GoPro or to like our mirrorless cameras or even like camcorders. But I say the number one used is what's in our pockets, the iPhone. You know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's so great. Like it depends what you're doing. Like if you're sitting at the top of the stands and you're holding it like this and you're trying to watch the game at the same time, it's probably not going to look that great. But if you're actually getting up and you're getting closer and you're filming purposely and you're applying yourself, then it can look pretty good.
Yeah. And the trick is to know your gear too, right? Like even like my 7.4. So when I was away last week doing the event, I was asked to take some photos at the same time too. And you know what that's like when you're a videographer. You're like, I'm the video guy, I'm not the photographer. Like, it's different lenses, different stuff. You're always thinking, because you always want to do the best you can do. So basically, like my 1, 2, 3 menu where I have all my my settings saved, I abandoned those. I just went into manual, and on the A7 IV, it's really nice. There's just a little switch. You can go from video to still with one switch. So I just use that, and it keeps your white balance and it keeps your settings. So once you set your settings for photos and you set your settings for video, as long as you're not changing locations constantly, like I was pretty lucky. I was in a set location, so I could just toggle back and forth. And it made my workflow really smooth. Like I was impressed. Like I wasn't intimidated anymore if someone's like, oh, can you take photos? Can you help me and take a couple photos also? Because I was like, oh, this is going to be hectic. Like, how am I going to go back and forth? Because I never really used my camera that way before. Like I've used it for photos, but just photos or just video. But now I was doing both at the same time, covering a live event. You're like, oh man, how's this going to work? But what a nice little feature. That's it. But what a nice little feature. So just get to know your gear, and I reviewed my camera. I went on YouTube. I give you a shout out. I went on YouTube just to refresh. But yeah, like it was really, really handy to have that camera in that situation with that little tool that I could just toggle back and forth, especially the settings saved. If the settings didn't save, then it would have been a nightmare. But the settings, once you set your white balance and you know what you're shooting, you figure your shutter out and that, you're good. You're good to go.
Yeah. So let's transition to our podcast. Like since we're supposed to talk about how it's been. We've been doing this for what, 3 months now?
3 months, yeah, 3 months.
So what's the I don't know, first of all, are you enjoying it? But what's the highlight? What do you like about it? What's the part that you enjoy the most? Do we want to make changes? What's going on?
Honestly, I'm enjoying it so far. It's kind of good that, we have each other, so we keep each other accountable. Like, sometimes we have crazy weeks and crazy schedules, but we always kind of fit in our show. Definitely be getting some positive feedback from friends. So before this podcast, I don't really post on social media much. Since this podcast, my friends are like, what the hell is this happening to this guy? Is he trying to be an influencer? Like he's posting every day. I'm learning what 4K 60 is. What's an ND filter? My friends are like, what's going on here? But they're watching, they're listening, and they're surprised of some of the stories and stuff because you and I talk work, we talk shop, but your friends on the outside, you don't always tell them about what's going on a sports team or what it's like filming a sports event, what kind of gear. And you don't talk about those things, A, because sometimes you're not allowed to talk about those things when you're working for a team. And B, you don't think they'd really care. So having an audience who you can talk to and share your experiences, and maybe if it helps somebody, I find really, really rewarding. And it's nice. And I don't know. I hope maybe we can make a difference for somebody out there, you know, like, at the PWHL game, I had a guy tap me on the shoulder. I was like, listen, I really want to get into sports videography. I see you're filming the games. How do I do this? So I said, well, listen, buddy, you got to listen to my podcast. That's the first thing you got to do. You got to subscribe to Game Day Glare. And I made that guy subscribe right then and there. And then he sent me an email, and I started giving him the steps on what he could start working on and start getting out there. And as you've seen, we've had guests in the past, like look at Shafiq, who was on the show. And he started the same way that we suggest to people to start. Go out there, film some stuff, you know, get experience. You know, even if you have to do it for free for a little bit while you're younger. I guess it's harder too. Like if we were to do this right now, well, I have a family, so for me to go out right now and do all these games for free and all that, it would be more of a passion, not a career. But if you're trying to make it a career and you don't have to worry about supporting family, then go for it now. And you have to give some free stuff out there. Now, if you're doing it more as a passion, then it's the same idea, but you don't have to worry as much because this isn't how you're trying to support yourself. So I don't know. That's where I'm at. What about you?
For me, it's very difficult. No, it's fun. Like you said, it's good. It's good as well to be doing it with someone because first of all, my everyday job is very lonely in the sense that I work for myself, by myself. Obviously go to sporting events and stuff, and I talk to people, but like most of the time I'm at home editing and doing YouTube videos, and I don't really get any feedback until the video comes out. So so that go through this process with someone is you know, it's there's a bit more social. There's a social aspect to it that's very fun, and also helps, like you said, regarding accountability, because now it's not just me that's like, yeah, do I want to work all night for this video to be done tomorrow, or just getting out the next day? Usually it goes to the next day, but when I have a deadline and you and I agreed on things, then, you know, I stick to the schedule and I do what I'm supposed to do. So it's good that way. It sort of helps me having a bit more of a schedule, a structure, and things like that. And also it's at the end of the day, it's about talking about stuff that I enjoy talking about with someone that I enjoy talking to. So it's good fun and it's easy. And, you know, today we didn't really have a subject that was sort of set in stone, and here we are an hour later and we're still talking. So it's that pretty much says it all. So yeah, it's fun, and I like the fact that people seem to listen and to watch the clips, and we get feedback. I get questions and DMs and suggestions with ideas of like topics and things like that. So it's cool to see people getting involved, and for me that's the fun part, is because I feel like my YouTube videos are it's so like educational, sort of just me saying like, here how you can do this, or here I can help you do that. So there's less of that just conversation. So the podcast for me is sort of my way to, obviously through you, I'm also talking to all these people in a much more casual way about sports videography, but also about my career and the things that I'm doing and where I'm at and stuff like that. So it kind of takes away that pressure of trying to do that in my YouTube videos, because you want to let people know who you are and what you're up to. But when I'm doing a video about a camera, there's always that fine line of like, do I want to add an extra 2 minutes to my video to talk about something that has nothing to do with that camera? It's like, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but to be honest, I mostly don't. And I always I never know if it's the right call or not. So to now have this outlet where I can just chop it up and talk is good. It takes, I know I'm doing it, so I don't have that pressure to do it in my videos. So yeah, it's quite fun for that. And yeah, like I said, we even get questions. So I know that we were going to ultimately answer some questions. Do you want to get into this now? Or?
Yeah, sure. Actually, while you're talking about YouTube, I'll ask the first question today.
Oh, sure.
And this one's just from me to you. So get ready. It's a hard one. All right?
Is it going to make make
it's
this
about
recording.
it's about your YouTube. It's about your YouTube, because I watched this YouTube video the other day, and this question came up. So, I mean, we work for other people, so there's times where you have to put your creativity aside, right? Because we've all been in the situation where you make a video and you're happy with it, and you give it to your client or your athlete or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, can you change this? Can you change that?" And you don't understand. Like, I'm all for making changes if it's going to make the final piece better. But sometimes I call it the thumbprint effect. They just want to put their thumbprint on it, and they just want to say that they made that change. And you're like, but buddy, it doesn't work. But okay. So that's where I'm going with this question. So how much of your creativity are you willing to abandon to get more views?
100%.
That's it. All of it. Wait, how many views are we talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, that's what I should have said.
No, but like when you're building a piece, are you thinking like, okay, I want this nice cinematic intro, or you're like, listen, I'm just going to get to the punchline because I got 4 seconds for this guy to stay on this video? Like, how hard is that?
Well, there's a lot to sort of, there's a lot in there. Like, first of all, for me, my concern is not views. My concern is that video giving you any valuable information? That's really what I'm the most focused on and worried about. Like if I'm doing a video about how to get, clean shots, or how to, I'm talking about a camera, I'm talking about something, I want you to come out of this video because you clicked on that video because you were interested in that topic. That title sort of sold you on the tip that I was giving you, or, I was teaching you something. That's what you clicked on. That's what you're expecting. So I put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure that you do learn something. Maybe not the entire video. You're not going to come out of it thinking like, wow, I just went through like a, university class about cameras, but you learned something that was worth 5 to 10 minutes of your time, basically. So that's my number one focus. So if I have to let go of my creativity to make sure that this happens, I'll do it every time. But in terms of, but at the same time, like, because my channel is a videography channel, I also put a lot of pressure on myself to make it look good, because I think if you're talking about videography and you're talking to people saying, I know how to get a nice, good image, I know how to make great edits, well, that video better show it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if half my shots were overexposed, and if everything was kind of boring and not looking that great, then I would look kind of dumb telling people how to accomplish it if I can't even do it in my own videos. So there's a bit of that as well, that I'm trying to make sure that my stuff looks good enough to look credible when I try to give people advice. So yeah, that's sort of the battle that I'm always.
Wait, avoid answering my question. I see what you did there.
Oh, no, I thought I'd answer it, but
no.
But yeah, no. Well, views, not views. I don't know. No, I don't. I definitely don't sacrifice creativity for views, because I get what you're saying with the idea of like having a quick intro and getting straight into it, and all those things that people tell you will get the viewers hooked from the start. And I'll definitely, don't get me wrong, I'll definitely try to work on my hook at the start and make it interesting and engaging and spark some curiosity and stuff. But I don't think I'm that good at it, first of all. And second of all, I think,
doing a good job, buddy.
Well, you should see my analytics. But I don't know. I feel like people come to my channel, like, it's not a vlogging channel. Like, it's not like I have to like sell you on some cliffhanger type thing. Like, you're coming in because there's a topic that you're interested in. And so, there's no need for me to overdo it. And the other thing as well that I learned to appreciate is that my videos are evergreen. Like, they're always, there's videos from 3 years ago that are still getting views, you know. So it's not like if I launch a video, I release a video and it's not doing great, like who cares? Like, because it's every day it's getting 5 views, 10 views, 20 views, whatever. And so it's like a library. I see my channel as a library where you go and you can pick all these different little books that will help you get better at what you do. So it's not about one video going viral. It's about all my videos getting a small amount of views, and all together they create a channel that is sustainable for me.
Actually, that's a good point. That is like a library, because it really is. Like you touch a lot of the main topics, and yeah, the evergreen aspect of your channel is really good, because even though technology changes, things change. The specifics in those videos you can always go back to and refer to them. Now, I got a side question for you. Now, obviously, a lot of people learn from your channel, and it's not easy putting yourself out there and being on camera. Like, especially you and I in our field, we're mostly behind the camera. We're most comfortable when the camera's in our hands. So what have you learned about yourself from being on camera?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm a very shy person to begin with.
Yeah, at 6'4", you're very, very shy. Like, you're not sneaking in anywhere without anyone noticing you, by the way, okay?
Well, that's because of my good looks. It's not
that's it. That's right.
No, but it's funny because even being behind the camera itself wasn't my thing. I was a video editor. Like I was more than happy to just stay in the office away from everyone and just do my thing and that's it. So just actually being at an event, filming, that's already big for me. And then being in front of the camera, that's even bigger. But at the same time, it is and it isn't, because like when I'm filming at an event, I'm mostly filming the action. I'm filming the game. I'm filming the crowd. I'm not really filming myself that much. I do it sometimes. I did it with you the last time we were together, but I rarely do it. Like most of the time when I'm filming myself, I'm by myself in my office. So, and to me, it's easy to disconnect from, a lot of people would do what I do and think, holy shit, like I'm in front of the camera, and like they become very self-conscious. Where for me, I'm still by myself. It's just a camera. It's a piece of, it's like, I understand that people are going to see this, but I would be way more intimidated if I was doing it in front of other people, like while I'm doing it. But because I'm by myself and there's no one there to judge me, to look at me while I'm doing it, I am 100% comfortable. But I did learn that, and I think also I started doing this in my late 30s, let's say. So I think if I was 22 when I started YouTube, I would have been way more self-conscious about it. Like now I'm a bit more mature. I don't really care about trolls or whatever, but like,
that's it.
I'm too old to be worried about those things. But so that helps. But to answer your question, I think I learned, I think I learned that I can sort of I can be myself and be interesting, I guess, because I've never really seen myself as someone that interesting. So, and I never, that was never the purpose of the channel. The purpose of the channel was to film other people and make sports stories and documentaries, and those little sports videography thing that I started doing were just meant to be fillers. At the beginning, when I had the idea, it was just, I'll do once in a while, I'll just do that so that I don't go like a month without releasing a video. But then started getting into it, and I got more comfortable in it. And then I think now, like, if anything, it makes me more comfortable talking with people, makes me more comfortable sort of, having the attention, being the person talking. And then it's a weird feeling to go to a basketball game, and I'm the guy who's just doing its own thing, not talking to anyone. And then every time now that I go to an event, at some point, someone with a camera, not someone from the crowd, but like there'll be someone with a camera that'll walk up to me and say, hey, and by the way, I love your videos and keep doing what you do, blah, blah, blah. And I'm always like, just, it's so weird. It's so, I kind of forget that I can walk, in these things and people know who I am. And then I get self-conscious about it because I'm like, oh, now they're probably looking at me filming, wondering how I do it and things like that. So I feel like I have to be good now. but yeah, no, it's fun. It's different. It probably brought me out of my shell is the answer to that question. The long answer.
It must be rewarding too when someone comes up and says like basically, oh, I see your videos, I love your videos. It means you're helping them.
Yeah, well, it's fun. Yeah, no, in that way. I remember the first time it happened, I was at I don't know if it was the first time, but the first meaningful time, like where, well, I shouldn't say that. It was the first time, to be honest, but when I say meaningful, it's because I was at it was a basketball tournament. It's like a street ball thing. And so because it wasn't like a really mainstream thing, like it was all kids with little mirrorless cameras, and they're all allowed as media to go there and film. And, the whole marketing strategy was just trying to have as many clips on Instagram and TikTok. So there's a bunch of kids with cameras. And so many of them like walked up to me and told me, you're the reason I got this camera, and you're the reason I got this. And then I got better at that. And I was like, this is so cool that now like people can just go on YouTube and learn about this stuff. And then they go out there to these events where they had the train of thought to go and get accredited to this basketball event that's going to allow them to build a portfolio on Instagram and do all these things. It was like when I was their age, there was nothing like that. And to know that, like, yeah, when I started the channel, I was like, there's nothing about sports videography. And what got me to do more and more of it was that the views weren't that great at all. Like it took a while before I got, decent views on my videos, but the comments were really meaningful. Like people were really like, finally something that can help me with this and that and that. And that sort of kept me pushing it. And now I can see, not because of the channel, but because that's where the industry is at. And I can see how all of this is happening, and being a part of it, and knowing that it's serving a purpose, and that people are actually using it for the reasons that I thought they would be using it. It's like it's one thing to have an idea in your head, but it's crazy to see 5 years later this idea actually coming through, like making sense and going all the way and going full circle, and so seeing all these things and go like, holy shit, it's actually happening. And that's what's cool about it.
And honestly, you're only is just started. Like, you got a lot more to go. So imagine what's going to look in another 5 years from now, especially, now that you added a podcast to your repertoire, like,
Next up, we'll have a show on TLC about, I don't know, some sort of reality show.
That's it. So do you want to do any questions from our audience, or have we just answered our
questions? I've got a couple.
You got a couple? All right.
Yeah. I'll throw, you ask me a question, I'll ask you a question.
You can ask me a question.
You're not getting,
I ask you all these philosophical, deep questions, so I want our audience to really connect to you, E.
Yeah, mine are more technical. Yeah, I did some feelings in there if you want.
One thing I will say that is easy about doing the show with you, though, honestly, like I'm not used to being on camera, but you and I, it's just a conversation.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's easy. It's easy. Like I forget the camera's there because if you guys notice, I don't even look at it half the time. But most of our listeners listen to this on Spotify or Apple anyway. Like our YouTube numbers aren't that great when you talk about analytics, but it's just a conversation, so I forget the camera's there.
Yeah.
I mean, because I do sometimes look at it.
When we started, were you a bit like shy?
I would always get nervous because like I'd always like we always have our pre-production meeting, and I always say the same thing. Okay, who's starting off the show? Yeah. That's the part that's the most stressful for me. It's like, okay, so E will start it, I'll start it, and I always look at my little notes that are over here on the left, and I'm like, okay, today's show is about audio. Okay. Say something about audio, and then I press record, and I'm like, "Hey, so welcome. Today's about audio." But once that part's done, it's just a conversation. So we could take it anywhere we go. Like we do have some notes and stuff like that, like bullet points, but we can go anywhere. Like we don't have to stick to what I wrote in the script. Okay.
Yeah, because. People should know you're the brains behind this operation.
I send an email. Hey, you want to talk about XYZ? What do you want to talk about this week? And then I write a bunch of stuff.
Yes, which I'm always very impressed with how like the extent of your breakdown. I'm like, Jesus Christ, how
And
much
he
time is
writes
that?
back always, looks good.
Exactly.
No comments. I'm like, do you want to add
Puts
anything?
like 7 hours in an email, and I'm like, all good, buddy. See you tomorrow.
In my head, I'm like, he didn't even read this. He didn't read this email. He doesn't even know what we're talking about tomorrow. Actually,
No, I read it, and it's in front of me right now.
So. There you go. There you go. All right. So hit me with your first question.
All right. When filming sports, do you constantly zoom in and out, or do you stay wide? And the implication here, because I think I'm going to combine it with the next question because they're very similar, which is basically, do you follow the action and then zoom in and out, even though when you're panning, basically it can be a bit jarring, I guess? Or do you kind of stay wide and then do all that movement in post?
Okay, so if I'm filming for broadcast, my lens is so good I can zoom in and out and you don't even really notice as much. So for hockey games, yeah, I'm in and out. I'm following the play. I also have the luxury of where I am that my camera is used for a lot of replays, so I could cheat. If I do zoom in too much and I miss that angle, then I miss it and they just won't use me. But I don't want to miss that. So I do go a little wider than you can, but I'll still zoom in and out. If I have my mirrorless camera on me, I'm focused on catching the play, so I'm wider, and then I'll zoom in and post a bit. But to zoom in and post, that means I got to be editing in a 1080 timeline. Ideally edit in a 1080 timeline and film in 4K to get the maximum zoom in I could do. You know, because I feel like unless it depends on the edit, but if I'm actually want the play, then I'm wide. If I'm just doing like a shot of an ISO of a person, then you want that tight. Maybe you can catch them scoring that goal or that basket. That's not a problem. But the only way to get a full play is to be wide, at least the way I see it. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're gonna want to make sure that you get all the action and then you don't, the wider you are, like you obviously don't want to be too wide, but if you're wider, not only are you gonna get the entire shot, but it's gonna be easier to react to what's going on and not sort of lose, get the player going out of frame and things like that. Like being wider makes it easier for the player to remain in the frame at all times. So if later on you end up doing like a vertical video, for example, you just have to use a few keyframes and then it looks like you're the best cameraman in the world. But at the same time, I get impatient and just like filming wide the entire game, I just get bored and then I'll try to zoom in and I'll do my little things just to have fun. I'm like, just like entertaining myself at that point, just with my cool. Like, for example, I'm shooting basketball and I'm trying to zoom in as the ball is going into the basket, and half the time it's a mistake, but it's just like at that point I'm just having fun. I'm just trying to entertain myself and challenge myself, and we'll deal with the consequences later, sort of thing. Is just, and it's really impatience, but it forces me to. Which is not great when you're going to do social content afterwards with it, because when you're trying to film in vertical, if you zoom in too much, then it's hard to have like a decent looking shot if you're cropping out 2/3 of it, if it's too zoomed in. But so yeah, I would recommend to stay wide because it also helps you to be more stable. And that's something that I'm trying to force myself to do. Like I'm trying to shoot wider than I normally would, because I'm creating more and more content in 9:16, and I'm trying to keep that in mind, to the point where the last time I filmed hockey at the PWHL, I had in my monitor, I had like guides that were 9:16 in the middle of my frame, and pretty much the entire game I was trying to keep the action in the middle, in between those two guides, because I had a pretty wide shot. I was filming from the stand, so it was like a higher type of point of view, and so I was keeping the players in the middle, and to be honest, it sort of kept me from doing those unnecessary zooms all the time, because if my focus is always in that middle, then the player looks zoomed in enough. Like it's just, if you're if you're looking at the whole image, then I could definitely zoom in a lot more. But when you're just looking at the middle and how much space she's taking, like that player is taking in between my two guides, I'm like, I don't need to zoom in at all. But at the same time, sometimes I was centering the action where I should have probably have it more to the left if I'm considering the entire frame. Like I'm thinking, like I'm putting everything in the middle, but there was definitely situations where it wouldn't make a lot more sense to have it sort of the action on the left and then sort of the open space on the right instead of everything centered. But yeah, it's like new ways to film. To be honest, I haven't edited that footage, so maybe it was a huge mistake. I'd have to look at it.
So it's funny. I was watching this reel the other day. This guy from the NBA, where he has a FX6, and he basically made his rig sideways now because he's asked for so much vertical content that he's just given in, and he's the vertical content guy, but he's shooting on an FX6, so he just rotated the whole body and his zoom handle and everything. And I wonder if that's what it's going to come to eventually. Like they're going to be like, okay, you're filming vertical today, you're filming horizontal. Because obviously if you like, you know, you're filming 4K vertical and then you're editing that in 1080 vertical, you have a lot more real estate. You could really, really zoom in. You could, you know, instead of doing what we're doing it wide. So that way we can make sure that we get the middle, but they're filming it the way that they're going to edit it, and they could zoom in even closer. So I wonder if that's what's going to happen eventually.
Well, I just don't like the idea of like now if you ever decide in the future to use that footage, you're stuck with a vertical image because you can always go from landscape to vertical. Doing the opposite,
unless you just want a headshot.
Yeah, exactly. So for that reason, I would much rather do like, because my monitor, I only had guys, like it was just two lines. So I could still see the left and the right. I've seen people shoot landscape, but in their monitor, they only see the middle. Like the left and right side are blacked out, which I would be willing to try that. But to go to the extent of turning my camera and filming everything vertical, unless I know that I'm filming strictly for social media for that game, and it's never going to be used again, then I guess. But for me, everything I'm filming, I'm always thinking that I might use it in the future. So I wouldn't be willing to go that far.
No, me neither. And honestly, I did some gym videos last summer, and I shot them all vertical, and it was hard.
Well, gym's a different thing because
it was challenging
subject
for me. Like I'm not used to filming that way, so I didn't like the way it looked. Like I when you're used to seeing horizontal, and then all of a sudden you're stuck in this vertical, and it felt so tight. I found.
Yeah. There's no there's no composition anymore.
No. It's like this is the shot. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let me move this, and then we can.
There's no nice pans. There's no like
out of focus weights in the foreground.
No.
I got another question for you. Last one.
All right.
It's about creativity, actually.
There you go.
How do you know when a visual effect is appropriate and looks good as opposed to being forced and looking kind of corny? Like basically a beginner who's trying to use effects but always feels, especially if especially if the footage is probably a bit lower quality, sometimes you're adding these effects in it and it just looks corny, like it just looks like you're trying too hard. So how do you know like when that's the case, or like versus actually getting it right and it feels right and it's there? Like, how do you make that judgment call?
So there is no right or wrong, obviously, right? Because video is all perception. But on something like that, honestly, I go with my gut. If I see, even me, I've worked my butt off on some effects, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. And I throw in my timeline and I cringe a bit. I'm like, oh no, and then you scrap it, you know. So I go with my gut, and I kind of see what works and what doesn't work. And I know that's a very vague answer, and you're like, okay, well, you didn't really answer my question. But with effects are tricky. Effects are really, really tricky. I mean, because there's a lot of videos where guys overdo it, and yes, it looks great, but it doesn't make sense in your edit. So make sure you're using an effect with a purpose. Like, I'm having this guy pop out, or I'm freeze framing this, so then it leads up to the next shot. Make sure that as long as it blends in with the next shot, or it makes a smooth transition, that's when the effect works. But when you see an effect and you're like, okay, wow, and then all of a sudden the next shot, whatever goes after that effect doesn't work at all, then that's where you lost the effect. So as long as the effect is smooth, yes, it's like a wow moment, or wow, that's cool. You notice something's different, but make sure it flows with the rest of your video. Don't just put in a random effect here or there that makes zero sense. And that's the thing that I find with a lot of people, and it's a gut feeling for me. Like, if I do an effect and it doesn't have that smooth transition after, or if it doesn't flow with my video, then I'm pulling that effect out.
No, I totally agree. Because I think especially with these, like if people have to work on the effects or to create it from scratch, usually it makes sense because they created it for a reason. But when they're using these little drag and drop effects that you can find in CapCut, for example, that's when they tend to go overboard, because they're just, okay, I've got this video that looks a bit average because I don't really know what I'm doing. So how can I make it look professional? Oh, that effect looks cool. All right, I'll just try to find a way to make it work because the effect itself looks cool, but not necessarily in your video. So then they'll just drag and drop these things at, various places and trying to make their video better, but it's not really. Like you said, it has to make sense. It has to serve a purpose. And if it doesn't, and you're just like trying to throw things in there to magically make it better, it usually doesn't really happen. So yeah.
Not everybody needs a lightning bolt wrapping around them, or, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
Because that's what CapCut has a lot. CapCut has some cool effects, though, I will admit, especially for sports videography. But some of them, people just overdo it. So it's like, trim it down a bit. Use at your high moments, or like for a big impactful hit or something like that, then yeah, go for it. But if you're just throwing that lightning bolt effect on grandma walking across the street, well, it doesn't make any sense. So, get rid of that effect. But that's it for Q&A today?
Yes, I think so.
All right. Well, before we go, I want to do a couple of shout outs, okay? So first, I want to thank E for jumping on this project with me, because honestly, it's been fun. And I mean, I know you got a lot with your YouTube channel and that, so organizing this on top of that, I know it's not always
I'm not even
easy.
Wearing bottoms right now, so
that's it.
That complicated.
He just he starts up the show shirtless, and he puts on the hoodie just because when we turn on the cameras.
Exactly.
But no. But honestly, there wouldn't be a game day glare if you didn't say yes to this project, because there's no way I would sit here on the camera and just talk to myself like you do on YouTube. Okay, there's no way I could do that. All right. Sure. Shout out number 2. I'm going to shout out to my friend Doug, who listens, and he finally figured out after listening to our show what the 4K 60 on his iPhone is, because he's like, oh, I never even knew what that did. So, and I told him that I would do this. I was supposed to do this a couple shows ago, but I never have. So I'm shouting out to Doug, who does listen. I don't know how many episodes he listens to, but he definitely listened long enough to know what the 4K 60 means on his iPhone.
Well, if anything, the show served the purpose.
That's it. The next shout is to my son, who says, Dad, were you trying to be an influencer? You're all over my Instagram. I'm like, buddy, we're sharing clips of our show so people know there's a new show and to show the topics that we're doing. And then he's like, oh, I didn't know you film with GSP. That's pretty cool. I'm like, well, why don't you listen to my podcast, Landon? No, I don't listen to influencers. So I'm like, you said I'm trying to be an influencer and that I'm a fake influencer. And now I'm an influencer. What is it, buddy? So maybe one day he's going to listen to one of these shows. I don't know. And I obviously have to thank my wife, because she puts up me and E's schedule. And every time that I book one of these shows, she has a million things planned for me. And I always tell her, no, I'm filming today. Sorry, I can't do that. And then she's like, well, how long are you filming? I'm like, oh, we'll be about an hour and a half. She's like, yeah, you guys are always like 3 hours, because by the time we talk before,
sure,
film the show, talk after. So
very true.
Thanks to her. And the last one is my buddy Steve, who said he only listens to our reels. He goes, oh, it always sounds interesting. And then the story cuts off. I'm like, yeah? He goes, and that's where it stops for me. I'm like, so go on the show and listen to the rest of the show and you'll hear the rest of the story.
Well, that's going to be a reel.
That's it. So I'm going to put these, that's why these are just sound bites for my reel. That's why I'm putting stuff now. No, but I want to thank,
I see what you're doing.
I want to thank all the listeners too. So far it's been fun. And honestly, we're only starting. We got some other guests lined up over the summer. NBA, CFL guys. So we'll see when we can get those out there. First of all, we got one friend who's in the NBA playoffs right now who hasn't been able to come on our show. And so we got some exciting things coming. And we also want to know, like, listen, write in the comments if you want topics, you want us to talk about certain things, reach out and let us know what we can help you with. Now that I totally monopolized the end of the show, I'll let you get in there and say a couple of things.
No, I don't have much to say, but I was gonna say also though, like, definitely shout out to you because I said, like, I mentioned it earlier, but like, yeah, you're definitely the brains behind this operation, and if it wasn't for you, there wouldn't be much of a show, and the conversations it probably wouldn't last as long, and would lack a lot of substance. So, and it was definitely your idea to begin with as well. So, and it, like I said, it brought to me a lot of structure to my whole thing, doing my YouTube thing and everything. So it's not just a podcast; it's my whole sort of online presence, as a whole. So it helps me a lot, and it's fun to do. So, like, thank you a lot for that.
No problem. And you're the talent. You're the talent. That's why I recruited you. I said, listen, he checks a lot of boxes, So let's get him on the show. Let's get him on the show. But you know what actually is fun is creating the short form content, because just on Vinny's show, like the opening, like, so he will edit some shows, I edit some shows, and we never really discuss what we're going to put on that opening little segment. But sometimes we always try and put something a little funny or something like that. So I enjoy that stuff. I enjoy digging deep into our show after, looking for that little funny moment to try and grab people's attention. And even what we do with our clips, like, we have a lot of clips that we could share, and we're both busy, so we don't get to share them all the time, but we try and share what's fun. And honestly, at the end of the day, this is something that we created, so we try to make it as fun as possible.
Sounds like I should use your help to create hooks for my YouTube video.
There you go. Well, if you give me some free gear, hook me with some free gear, I'll be there to help you hook. Okay, I'm looking for a camera. So there you go.
Good luck. Pressure's on.
That's it. All right. So that's it for this episode of Game Day Glare.
Yes. See you guys next week.